Module 8 and Module 9, Additional Tools and Time Savers. Okay, first of all, we're going to enter in some text. Text is really good for making additional notes for either the client or the CAD department. Just a good idea. Can't hurt to always add a bit more detail. So, from the Place menu, scroll down and select Text. Notes like the placement of a bin, for instance, is a good idea. There it is. Click and drag, plonk it in front of the bin. Wall cabinet in chocolate, for example. So say, actually this is a good example, if I want to include an arrow just to indicate exactly where I'm talking about, another tool, go to Place, Arrow. Always remember to click the point where you want the head of the arrow to be. Click and drag to here. There's our arrow. Manual dimensions can also be entered by going up to this icon here, or perhaps going to the Place Linear Dimension. So click and drag between 2 points, for example here to here, letting go, and then slide up and down depending on where you want the information to appear. So let's say it might look a bit too busy if we put the linear dimension in there. We can drag all the way down here so that the information appears out of the kitchen, so it's not too busy. And that gives us our dimension, 1106 mil from benchtop to benchtop. If you have an exact dimension in mind, click on the measurement, right click and go to Attributes, and you can actually manually override the size. So if you say, for example, you want it at 1200, click OK. That just changes it. As you can see, the anchor points have now moved over to accommodate. And you can also change the depth, and the depth has to do with how far from the original point the information appears. So let's say 900 instead, and the info jumps up a little bit. Now, I know we've done this a couple of times already, but I'll just give you the complete overview on 3D perspectives. To view the kitchen in the perspective, click on this cube icon, which we've been doing. This option is also available in View, and that's this one here. It's currently grayed out because we're already in it. So here we are in our 3D view. Again, if you click down the scroll or the wheel on your mouse, you can pan across the room just to give you a better view, or use the sliders at the bottom to rotate side to side and up and down. There's also the option to view a final realistic perspective, but this only becomes available once you've uploaded Kitchen Drawer with lots of hours. So it may or may not be available, but it also takes quite a while to load. So that was the camera icon up the top here. Takes a bit of a while to load, but the image, is a little bit better. And to exit out, if it's taking too long, you can either wait for this to pop up and say OK, or you could have also pressed Escape. If you then want to change the view, it then reverts back to the lesser quality image. But once you get the angle in mind that you would like, click the camera again. Let's say I'm impatient and I want to escape. Hit the button Escape on your keyboard. Brings up that menu sooner. Click OK, and there's your view. Module 9 focuses a lot on time-saving tips. So there's a great explanation on page 22 of your training guide about all of these tools and how to use them. But to give you a practical demonstration, I'm just going to use a bunch of them now. So just have a look at what I'm doing here. I'm going to focus on this cooktop run over here. I want to get it nice and symmetrical. So clicking on the wall to bring up an elevation of that space, let's put in a canopy and make sure that it is symmetrically above the oven and then equidistant between this tall panel and this wall panel. I'm not saying you have to be this thorough when it comes to doing your drawings, but I'm giving you a practical explanation on how these tools can be used. So let's go over to our catalogues. We're going to enter in, going to find ourselves a canopy. Let's choose one that's 900 wide. Bring it into the drawing and placing it down. Alright, I'm going to move this canopy into a fixed position. So that is alongside, let's have a look at this elevation view. That canopy is right up against that tall panel there. Now what I want is for the center of the canopy to be over the center of the oven. Hopping back into my plan view, I'm also going to bring up my calculator. We know that that oven cabinet is 638 wide. Dividing that in half to find its center is 319, plus the 300 millimeters we must add on for this floor cabinet beneath it or to the right of it. So we know that the center of the oven cabinet is 619 millimeters from the corner of the canopy's current location. But we also need to take into account that we need to find the center of the canopy, which we know is 450 because that's half of 900. So all in all, we need to move this canopy 169 millimeters from where it currently sits. We go move in a completely upward direction, making sure that line is straight. 169. There we go. Clicking on the wall to have a look at the elevation. That canopy is directly over the top of that oven. But if we're going to get really fiddly, you'll notice that the dimension from here to the panel is smaller than the dimension from here to this wall panel. So how do we know for sure? Well, we can go to this measuring tape tool. So we know that this distance ought to be 169 approximately. It's telling us 159, so let's zoom in a little bit closer just to get a better view. There we go, 169. Let's zoom out a bit and have a closer look at here. This dimension is 200. If we know that this distance is 200 mil approximately, but we want it to be 169, work out what the difference is. We need that panel to be closer to the canopy by 31 millimeters. Let's have a look at these items over here. We want to move multiple items now. So when I click on that panel, I'm going to hold down Shift on the keyboard to click on the cabinet and the filler as well. I can let go of Shift now because I've got my 3 items selected. Right click to select Move. In a downward direction, I want all 3 things to move 31 millimeters. I'm then likely to need to increase that filler by 31 millimeters as well. So because I'm currently in the appliance catalog, a shortcut to get to the joinery catalog to change my filler's width, I click on the lookup button. It takes me straight to it. I highlight the filler I want, change it to the overall width I need, and click Replace. Now, it's a very good idea to be aware of your colors and your two-tone kitchen, being that the chocolate finish was the last one we selected in generic finishes, when I replaced that filler just now, it still remains chocolate. But if I were to change a cabinet that's currently a bronze cabinet and click any replace button, it would also become chocolate as well. So just be conscious of that, and always make sure that you have a quick look in 3D at your final kitchen just to make sure everything's the right color. So I'm going to move this back into the corner and have a look over here. As you'll see, my canopy is smack bang in the middle above the oven and between these two cabinets. So there we've just looked at the move, the group move, the lookup, swap and measure tool. Looking at a few shortcuts now. If you get yourself very familiar with Kitchen Drawer, you're going to want to customize it to suit your needs. So you can do that with this menu bar. You can choose which icons appear as shortcuts depending on which ones you use the most. To bring up that option, double click anywhere on the blank part of the toolbar and it brings up the Customize Toolbar window. If you particularly like to hide objects or show objects, you can add those into the toolbar as well by highlighting and clicking Add and closing. And now you've got a couple of extra icons up here. Now I know you're going to ask, what do the hide and show buttons do? Just to give you a quick demonstration, I'll hop back into the 3D view. See this bench top? If I want to hide it, it just disappears like that. And then to bring it back, you need to click on it again. It's still there, you just can't see it. So if you click in the area, you'll see the little outline there and click show. And there it is again. So sometimes if you've got items that have popped up on the floor plan that you don't want them to be there, sometimes things like MDF bulkheads or two-tone chargers, they appear as little squares on the plan view. You can get rid of it and fix them up properly, but just in the interest of simplicity, sometimes you may just like to hide them instead. But if you prefer to have fewer icons on that menu, by all means, remove them and close it again. I'll just go back to those hide and show options. Even if an object is hidden, the price of it still applies. So hiding them is not the same as deleting them. Another great shortcut is to duplicate certain items on your screen. So sometimes if you've got lots of the same floor cabinet all in a row, or wall cabinet, or whatever it might be, panels as well actually, rather than clicking on the object and looking it up, clicking and drag it onto the screen, what you can do is simply click and go to drag the object, but then press Shift on your keyboard. Then let go of the mouse button first, keep your finger down on Shift, and it's just creating several of the same items all in a row. So that can be a handy one. Lastly, automatic linear articles. Now this can be your best or your worst friend when it comes to making bench tops. I'm just going to focus in again on our screen here. I'll use this corner first of all as an example. I'm just going to delete the current bench tops that we've got. I'll just hide the waterfall end over here for a bit. Automatic linear articles can be found under Scene. There we go, automatic linear articles. What you need to do is make sure the joinery catalog is highlighted up here and uncheck these boxes. You just want to have the worktop remaining. Click OK. It's just drawn 3 bench tops all automatically for us. Click on the 3D view to have a look. Now this will work in some circumstances. sometimes they won't. If you've got funny overhangs or bench tops that go beyond walls, it starts to go a little bit crazy. Also, it defaults to a bench top thickness of 38 millimeters, which in our case at the moment we want it to be 52. Simple fix, click on the object, go to attributes, change to 52, and you're good to go. So those corner bench tops have worked out perfectly. However, our little breakfast bar over here hasn't done so well. In fact, it's actually created 2 bench tops. So let's get rid of one of those for now. Here it is here. I'm just going to hop back into plan view. It hasn't quite made it to size. So that's an example of when the automatic linear articles benchtop function doesn't work, and it's a good idea to resort back to the manual method of calculating how big you need the benchtop to be, especially with waterfall ends, and doing it as per usual. We've now come to the end of modules 8 and 9. You're all done with your training exercises, but feel free to, in your own time, just go back into those or create a new job for yourself just to have a good practice at what you've just learned there. Next up will be module 10.